Welcome to the podcast, my sisters. Today, we're going to up level our coaching skill set. I'm going to teach you a very easy tool on how you can go deeper with your coaching client so that you can profoundly change the outcome that your clients experience with you, and you can meet the demand of our clients in 2025 to go deeper and at the root cause of their behavior. If you remember our last episode 422, I outlined what I believe to be my 5 prediction of the non-diet coaching industry 2025 forward. And my number one word for the year was deeper. Deeper coaching to meet our clients' expectation, because our clients are more educated, they're more different, they know what they're looking for. And also, I didn't talk about that in the podcast, but there's very unfortunate experience that some of our future clients have experienced. They felt that they have been duped by the online coaching industry. Perhaps they had a very bad experience. What they bought wasn't what they received, and now they're a lot more careful. So in order for us to go deeper, I'm going to teach you a tool that I give my students in the certification. The very first day we start working together, we go like knee deep on the very first session in the certification, and that's a very easy to use model of deeper coaching that you can also teach to your clients so they can use in between session. This model is called Going Beyond the Food coaching model, and something that I created because my client come to me with struggles, a variety of struggle with diet culture. And diet culture is nothing but a collection of thoughts, social conditioning beliefs that my client have been exposed to, and they have adapted their thinking, the way their emotions show up, their behavior, in order to meet the expectation of diet culture. And they come to me because they're like, okay, that's enough now. I don't want to behave this way anymore. I don't want to eat this way anymore. I don't want to think about my body and suffer about my body image so much. I don't want to behave in a way where I'm not caring for myself. I want to have health promoting behavior that are sustainable for the rest of my life. That's your client, which pretty sure it is. What I'm about to teach you is something that will allow you to go deeper with that specific subset of client. Here's a model. Pause, investigate, and decide. So it's a 3-step model of coaching, or if you're teaching it to your client, self-coaching, in order for them to achieve their goal. We always want to think that our clients are coming to us and they have a goal in mind, right? And this is something you should do in your very first session where you're working with them, is establish the goals that you and them are going to work together within the time frame of your coaching engagement. You're going to help them, support them, collaborate with them to achieve their goal. And the purpose of coaching is that when they struggle implementing the things in order to achieve their goal, you're going to be there to support them, redirect them, reframe circumstance, re-engage them in their goal, and move them again forward. So the whole reason why they work with you is to move through the struggle of achieving their goal. That typically most people, before they hire a professional coach, have attempted to achieve the goal on their own, but for some reason, and that's your role as a coach to determine the reason, they haven't achieved the goal on their own, and they're coming to you as a professional coach to help them achieve that goal. So when they come to session, there are likely going to be some struggle, frustration, feeling of failure in the things that they were supposed to do in between the appointment that will lead them to their goal. So very often when we start a session with the client, there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of avoidance, resistance. This model will allow you to meet, we'll call it that frustration, avoidance, procrastination, feeling of failure that your client's expressing to you, and go deeper and figure out why these emotions are showing up. Pause, investigate, and decide. Now, I want to forewarn all of you before I go deeper into that model that you may think as a coach, oh my God, this is too simple, right? And perhaps your client will think, oh my God, this is too simple. It needs something much more complicated in order for me to achieve my goal. And that's totally normal that you think that as a coach, that your client think that. It makes total sense that you both would think that, because that's what we've been sold by wellness culture and diet culture, that things have to be complicated in order for us to get to the result that they're promising us, because their promise doesn't work. Their promise is inaccurate. The promise is unrealistic. So for sure, the model to get to something that's only 1% of the population can achieve has to be hard. But when we adopt the weight neutral approach to health, when we adopt the non-diet coaching model, the results are actually the norm. Therefore, the process to get there, yeah, it's somewhat simple. It's the basic human behavioral experience. Pause, investigate, and decide. Okay? So it's going to feel simple, but stick with me. So we're going to assume that your client has a goal. They're coming to the session in that space of resistance, frustration, overwhelm, avoidance, and you have to intervene. Very first place we're going to do is pause. And the reason why we pause is there's a very fundamental principle in behavioral change, which says awareness precedes change. We cannot change something that we don't understand. Therefore, before jumping into action to change a behavior, we need to understand why the undesirable behavior happened in the first place. And we need to understand it not only intellectually, but from the experience of the body as well. Most of us, most of your clients will want to understand it only intellectually. Your coaching will take them deeper in their body. And there's a tool that I teach that most people working in the field of cognitive behavior coaching will teach you as well. I didn't create that. Riding the wave. If you're not familiar with the concept of riding the wave, I want you to imagine being on the beach, facing the ocean wave, and you're watching at the horizon line, you're watching a wave build up. That wave build-up analogy is our emotional process in the body. So, when we're talking about riding the wave, we're talking about going into the body and investigating the emotion of frustration, procrastination, overwhelm, failure, resistance. Through riding the wave, we take our client into their body to feel what is happening in their body. Talk about going deeper. Most of your clients will have never witnessed their emotion from inside the body. And that's when riding the wave comes in. So if you close your eyes, I'm going to close my eyes if you're watching me on video right now. But as my client come to me with these feeling of frustration, we close our eyes, put our hand on our heart, take a breath, and we imagine scanning the body up and down. You can imagine a balloon inside of the body, and every inhale and exhale, the balloon increase and decrease, and we're scanning up and down the body. And yes, before you ask me, I do this live on Zoom with my clients. Like, I'll close my eyes and I'll get them to close their eyes and I'll guide them through riding the wave of frustration, emotion, resistance, failure, whatever they come up with. We will ride the wave. We'll scan the body up and down. We'll imagine a wave. We will go in and tap into how this emotion feels in their body. We're going to scan the body up and down to detect, feel the sensation of how frustration shows up, how overwhelm shows up, how failure shows up in their body. And we're going to allow the emotion to be present. We're not going to run away from it. We're not going to avoid it. We're not going to try to willpower our way through doing the things we should be doing to get to the goal we want. We're going to allow the feeling of frustration, overwhelm, resistance to be there. And the interesting observation you will make as you do this with your client, when you start on minute 0.1, on the first 10 seconds, they will tell you the sensations are very strong. You're going to scan up and down the body with that balloon riding the wave. And after a minute or two, ask your client again, how are the sensations now in your body on the scale of 1 to 10? And what will happen is the sensation will get lesser. They'll go from being a 9 out of 10 to a 2 out of 10. Why does that happen? It happens because we're paying attention to the emotion. I want you to think of your emotion like it's like a radar. Those old style radar in perhaps a airport tower control, when we have the dots on the screen. Those dots are indicating to the controller where the planes are in its field of supervision. Same thing for your emotion. They're like a dot on the screen. They're clues to what's going on in your life. And that's a big piece of education to go deeper in our coaching, is educating our client why this frustration, overwhelm, resistance shows up. How does it show up in their body? So that's the piece called pause. The first step is to stop, go into the body, feel the sensation, pay attention to the emotion, signal to your nervous system that you are, I am aware, you have a message for me. Something is going on internally and I'm paying attention to it. Step number 2, investigate. Time to reopen our eyes, like the wave has crashed on the beach now. We've paid attention to the emotion. And we are now in a space where we can investigate why the frustration, the overwhelm, why that sensation of failure came to be. What happened in order for you to be in that frustrated space where you are right now? Now, again, your client at first will want to jump to the solution. Will want to go over and say, help me figure out how I can avoid this. What can I do now? Your role as the coach to go deeper in the coaching is to bring them back to investigate what happened. Not try to solve for it right away, but investigate what happened. This is when we ask ourselves, question, what am I thinking right now that makes me feel this way? What am I thinking that this situation, this failure, this non-adherence to the plan means about me? That's the big piece. Most human beings will make their behavior, their feeling, means something about them. The concept of neutrality towards emotion and behavior is foreign to most people. And that's our role as a coach, is to educate, teach, model, and help our client become neutral to their behavior. And one way to do that is to investigate. What am I thinking right now about what just happened that makes me feel this way? And separate thoughts from facts. A thought is an opinion, a descriptor, an interpretation, an idea. It is not a fact. I'll call it a fact of law. So for an example, I'll take a very classic body image example. People will come, and we have perhaps gone to the stage of looking at pictures or perhaps looking at our reflection in the mirror, and they'll come back to the next session extremely defeated, feeling ashamed, and they'll say, my body is so disgusting. My body is so ugly. And when we investigate that thought, is it a thought or a fact? Like, what am I thinking that made me feel ashamed? Well, I saw my reflection in the mirror and it's disgusting. My body is disgusting. Great. Is that a thought or a fact? And I will ask my clients, is that a thought or a fact? And just asking that question to investigate why you felt the shame and the disgust will often lead to a period of silence. And I leave the silence there, because they've never asked themselves, is it a fact or is it a thought? That moment of silence where they can actually internally start thinking about that is worth hundreds of dollars in coaching. That's how we go deeper with our client. And then we break it down. What is a thought? What is a fact? You have a body. That's a fact. You have a disgusting body. That's an opinion. That's your opinion. It's your perspective of the reflection in the mirror based on fat phobia, diet culture, social conditioning. And I won't tell them based on what. I'll say, why do you think this way? And I'll make them go do the work internally to discover where they have learned to think that this kind of body they're seeing in the reflection in the mirror is quote unquote labeled as disgusting. We take the time to investigate that. The first few times we'll do that in session can take 15, 20 minutes. But that's how we go deeper in our coaching. That's the gold of coaching. The third step, once we've investigated, felt the emotion, pause, we then ask ourselves, what do I want to think, go forward in order to achieve my goal? So that's the step called deciding which thought will support achieving my goal. So we'll go back to the example of the looking at the reflection in the mirror. I'll ask my client, is thinking that your body is disgusting will support you in becoming a body neutral person, if that's the goal they want to work with me? Clearly, they'll say to me, Stephanie, no, but what can I do? That is just the way my brain thinks. I'm like, great. That's the way your brain has been trained to think for however long you've been in diet culture. Now, this is the critical moment that will change your behavior. Now you need to coach your brain to think differently when it sees that reflection in the mirror. Because we know that the only reason why you judge that reflection in the mirror to be disgusting is because of diet culture and patriarchy and fat phobia, and we've discussed all of that. And you agree that you don't want to partake in those belief systems anymore. We've already made an agreement on that. If you keep thinking that your body is disgusting, you're actually supporting diet culture, fat phobia, and patriarchy and your past experience in the moment of today. You're continuing to add fuel to the fire. So what can we do? So now I'm going to share with you, coach, a very short script that you may want to write down, that you may want to use with yourself and your client in your own self-coaching. So we don't gaslit ourselves. So we don't teach our client to gaslit themselves. Here's a script. It makes total sense that my brain would think, put the thought, my body is disgusting because I have learned to think this way because my mother modeled it to me. I've learned to think this way because I have lived in diet culture for the last 25 years of my life. Like, you make them find the reason why they think this way in the thought. And that's called compassion. We bring compassion to our thinking pattern. So if you're watching me on video right now, which, by the way, this podcast is now being uploaded to YouTube in a video format, you will see that my two hands are on my chest, right? It makes total sense for me that I think my body is disgusting because I've spent 25 years actively dieting, supporting diet culture in my life. But today forward, I am choosing to think that my body is a vehicle to experience life. Now, that last phrase, my body is a vehicle to experience life, is the work we do with our client to decide what intentional thought they will decide to have in the future when they look at their body. But we don't do that by gaslighting that we think that our body is disgusting. No. We acknowledge that we think this way. We explain to ourselves why we do that. We recognize the reality of our thinking. And then we coach our brain to the new paradigm we want to believe. And with time and practice of that model, pause, investigate, decide, that's how we retrain our brain. We literally recreate new neural pathways in the brain that will, in time and practice, automatically think my body is a vehicle to experience life. That's the going beyond the food self-coaching model or coaching model that you can apply in your coaching with your client. Before I let you go, I want to remind you of a base principle of deeper coaching. When we start coaching at that level, when we up level our skill set to go deeper, there's a fundamental shift that needs to happen in the coach. Acknowledging that we can only take our client as far as we've taken ourselves. For an example, when we talk about emotional awareness, when we think about coaching our client with emotion, that is not an intellectual process. That's an in-body, it's a felt experience. So you need to be skilled in your own awareness of your emotion, in your own, for an example, ability to investigate your thought in order to lead someone else. Because it's not a script that you can stick to your wall and say, I have to say this, I have to say this, I have to say that, then I say this, then I do this. That level of deeper coaching cannot be facilitated with a script. It's facilitated by embodiment. So here's an intentional thought I am going to leave you with. My number one client is me. I am a coach every minute of my life, and that is the fastest way for me to deliver exceptional results to my client is by practicing on myself. I am my number one client. Go ahead and apply that up leveling of your skill set in coaching and deliver deeper coaching for your client, deeper level of transformation. And that, in time and practice, will grow your business. I'll see you in the next podcast. If you are listening to the podcast, you're probably in need of support. You have to come and grab our free non-diet coaching assessment tool and the how to use audio training at stephaniedodier.com/client assessment. And if you want support with the concept taught on the podcast and take your skills to the next level, we have a number of resources and programs on the shop page of our website. The best bet is for you to join our newsletter to get all the deeds as they become available. And I'll see you on the other side.